Jealousy is not an emotion. It is a signal, a biological alarm that someone has identified you as a threat to their position in the hierarchy. Most people misunderstand this. They think jealousy is about admiration gone wrong, or insecurity, or weakness. That belief is convenient. It keeps you passive. Machiavelli would never allow such a comforting illusion. To him, jealousy was proof of impact, proof that your presence has disrupted an invisible balance of power. The moment someone becomes jealous of you, something irreversible has occurred in their mind. They have compared themselves to you and lost, not objectively, psychologically. And the human mind does not forgive losses easily. When a person cannot surpass you, they begin to imagine removing you, quietly, indirectly, patiently. This is where naive people fail. They treat jealous individuals as emotional problems to be soothed. Machiavelli treated them as strategic variables to be managed. You must understand this clearly. Jealous people are not angry at what you did. They are disturbed by what you represent. You are evidence that their self-image is false, their status unstable, their future uncertain. Every success you achieve tightens the psychological pressure. Every calm move you make increases their internal chaos. This is why jealousy does not fade with reassurance, it intensifies. Human beings are hierarchical animals. Strip away language, culture, and morality, and what remains is ranking. Who leads, who follows, who is seen, who is ignored. Jealousy emerges when the hierarchy shifts without permission, when someone believes a position belongs to them and reality disagrees. The mind reacts with hostility masked as concern, criticism disguised as advice, smiles that carry calculation. Machiavelli observed that direct confrontation with jealousy is foolish. You cannot argue with a person who believes the universe owes you your downfall. You cannot reason someone out of a wound to their identity. Instead, he focused on control of perception, control of distance, control of timing. The ruthless strategy was never to crush jealous people openly. That creates martyrs. It creates alliances against you. Power prefers subtlety. Here is the uncomfortable truth you must absorb. Jealous people watch you more closely than allies ever will. They study your patterns. They memorize your weaknesses. They listen for hesitation in your voice. In evolutionary terms, they are predators waiting for imbalance. Not to attack head-on, but to exploit fatigue, distraction, or misplaced trust. If you treat them casually, you invite exposure. If you treat them emotionally, you reveal leverage. Machiavelli understood that the greatest mistake is to seek peace with those who envy you. Peace implies equality, and equality is precisely what they cannot tolerate. The jealous mind does not want harmony, it wants restoration of rank, either by rising above you or pulling you down. Since rising requires effort and skill, most choose the second path. Quiet sabotage feels easier than visible growth. This is why your first act of dominance is internal. You must stop seeing jealousy as an insult and start seeing it as a confirmation. Confirmation that you are no longer invisible. Confirmation that your trajectory has altered the environment. Once you accept this, fear dissolves. Fear comes from misunderstanding the game you are in. Clarity restores calm. But calm alone is not enough. Calm without strategy is vulnerability dressed as confidence. Machiavelli did not survive on awareness, he survived on precision. He knew when to reveal strength and when to conceal it. He knew when silence wounded more deeply than confrontation. He knew that the jealous person collapses fastest when deprived of reaction. In the next movement of this strategy, you will learn why visibility is both your weapon and your trap. and how Machiavelli manipulated attention itself to turn jealousy into self-destruction. The mind you are dealing with is unstable, impatient, and desperate for signals, and that is exactly where its weakness lives.
Visibility is power, but unmanaged visibility is provocation. Machiavelli understood this long before social psychology gave it language. The jealous mind does not merely observe you, it feeds on you. Every appearance, every success, every acknowledgement becomes fuel. But here is the inversion most people never grasp. Jealousy does not grow strongest when you dominate openly. It grows strongest when you are seen as untouchable, yet unreachable, close enough to compare, far enough to never equal. The mistake most people make is oscillation. One day they hide, the next day they boast. This inconsistency excites the jealous mind. It creates hope, and hope is dangerous. Hope convinces the jealous person that your position is temporary, that you can be caught, surpassed, or exposed. Machiavelli would never grant that illusion. His strategy was controlled presence, measured visibility, never disappearing, never over-explaining. You must understand how the human brain processes hierarchy. Status is not measured by achievement alone. It is measured by composure, by how little effort appears required to maintain position. When you react emotionally to jealousy, when you explain yourself, when you defend your choices, you lower yourself into the arena of comparison. You send a signal that their perception matters. That signal is intoxicating. It tells them the distance between you is shrinking. Silence, on the other hand, is destabilizing. Silence forces interpretation, and the jealous mind is a master of destructive imagination. When you do not respond, they fill the void with speculation. When you do not explain, they assume calculation. When you do not acknowledge, they feel erased. This is not cruelty, this is leverage. Machiavelli knew that attention is currency, and withholding it strategically creates imbalance. But do not confuse silence with absence. Absence allows them to rewrite the narrative. Silence, while remaining present, denies them closure. You continue to exist. You continue to progress. You simply stop participating in their psychological economy. This creates cognitive dissonance. They feel the threat, but cannot locate the mechanism. Anxiety replaces confidence. Impulsiveness replaces patience. Jealous people crave exposure. They want you to slip, to contradict yourself, to show irritation, to reveal fear. Every reaction you give them is a data point. Over time, they build a psychological map of you. Machiavelli's method was to starve that map, to become unreadable. Predictability is comfort. Unpredictability is dominance. There is another layer to this strategy, and it is colder. Jealousy thrives in proximity. The closer someone is to your inner world, the more material they have, the more narratives they can twist. Machiavelli warned against intimacy without utility. Not everyone deserves access. Access is not kindness. Access is exposure. The jealous person does not want closeness to support you. They want closeness to measure themselves against you constantly. Distance, when applied calmly, reorders hierarchy. You do not announce it. You do not dramatize it. You simply reduce availability. Responses slow. Engagement narrows. Familiarity fades. This triggers panic in the jealous mind. They feel demoted without explanation. They feel pushed downward without a visible hand. And because there is no open conflict, they cannot justify retaliation without revealing themselves. This is where most people grow uncomfortable. They fear appearing cold. They fear being misunderstood. Machiavelli dismissed this fear as weakness. Reputation is not built on universal approval. It is built on controlled perception. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be positioned. Understand this clearly. The jealous person is always watching for emotional leaks. They want proof that you are human in the way they are human, that you doubt, that you ache, that you fear replacement. When you deny them this, when your presence remains steady and unreactive, they begin to fracture internally. They exhaust themselves trying to provoke what never arrives. And this exhaustion leads to mistakes, careless words, premature moves, overexposure of intent. Machiavelli never rushed the downfall of jealous people. He let them reveal themselves. All power requires patience. The hunter does not chase a wounded animal. He waits. Now you will learn how Machiavelli exploited the jealous person's need for moral justification and why appearing virtuous at the wrong moment can become your greatest vulnerability.
Jealous people rarely see themselves as villains. This is the critical weakness Machiavelli exploited with precision. The jealous mind must justify its hostility, or it collapses under shame. So it disguises aggression as morality. Concern becomes criticism. Ethics become weapons. Values become camouflage. They do not attack you because they hate you. They attack you because they believe they are right. This is where naive strength fails. When you respond by defending your character, explaining your intentions, or proving your goodness, you step directly into their trap. You accept their moral frame. And once you accept their frame, you lose control of the game. Machiavelli warned that the moment you argue morality with someone who envies you, you have already ceded power. Why does this work so effectively on the human mind? Because morality feels safe. It feels superior. It allows the jealous person to strike without guilt, to undermine you while maintaining a self-image of righteousness. They are not tearing you down. They are correcting you. They are not envious. They are principled. This illusion protects them from self-awareness and makes their behavior relentless. Machiavelli's ruthless insight was this: never allow a jealous person to define the battlefield. If they speak in moral terms, you do not counter with morality. You counter with composure and ambiguity. You do not deny their accusations directly. You do not validate them either. You allow their words to hang in the air, unanswered, unresolved. This denies them closure and forces their justification to grow louder, more extreme, and more revealing. The human brain cannot tolerate unresolved tension. When someone attacks you under the banner of virtue and receives no emotional response, no correction, no defense, the tension turns inward. They begin to question themselves, or they double down. Either outcome benefits you. Self-doubt weakens them. Escalation exposes them. There is a deeper evolutionary reason this works. In social groups, moral aggression evolved as a way to control rivals without physical conflict. Reputation became the battlefield. But reputation attacks require consensus. They require witnesses. When you remain calm and silent, observers notice the imbalance. One person appears controlled, the other appears agitated. Over time, perception shifts, power shifts. Machiavelli understood that appearing virtuous is dangerous when surrounded by envy. Virtue invites scrutiny. Scrutiny invites distortion. The more openly good you try to appear, the more angles they have to twist your image. Instead, he favored strategic neutrality, not cruelty, not kindness, ambiguity. Ambiguity denies narrative control. This does not mean you abandon principles, it means you stop advertising them. Advertising morality is an invitation for attack. Living quietly above reproach while revealing nothing is far more threatening. The jealous person cannot find a clean entry point. They resort to insinuation, and insinuation without evidence rots the speaker, not the target. At this stage, something subtle begins to happen. The jealous person starts projecting. They accuse you of motives they themselves possess. They warn others about behaviors they are planning. This projection is not random, it is psychological leakage, and Machiavelli paid close attention to it. He let people confess through accusation. Your role is to observe without interruption, to remember without reacting, to document patterns without confrontation. This is not paranoia, this is preparation. Power is never built in the moment of attack. It is built long before, in silence, in memory, in positioning. But there is a danger here. Many people, once they understand this dynamic, become intoxicated by it. They begin to enjoy the suffering of the jealous. They begin to provoke deliberately. Machiavelli warned against this impulse. Provocation creates visibility. Visibility invites alliances. The goal is not dominance through cruelty, it is dominance through inevitability. Next, you will learn how Machiavelli turned the jealous person's own network against him without lifting a finger, and why restraint is the most violent move of all.
When jealousy matures, it seeks reinforcement. No mind sustains resentment alone forever. The jealous person begins to whisper, to hint, to test reactions in others. This is where most people panic. They rush to defend their name, to counter rumors, to confront the source. Machiavelli did none of this. He understood a brutal truth. The social field always exposes instability on its own, if you allow it to. Jealous individuals cannot recruit allies cleanly. Their motivation is impure, and impurity leaks. At first, they frame you as a problem, later as a danger, eventually as a moral threat. Each stage requires stronger language, more exaggeration, more emotional charge. Observers feel this escalation, even if they cannot articulate it. Calm power attracts, frenzied resentment repels. Machiavelli's restraint was not passive, it was surgical. He allowed the jealous person to speak, to repeat themselves, to overextend. Every repetition sharpened the contrast between your composure and their agitation. Over time, people stopped listening to content and started noticing tone, and tone reveals hierarchy. There is a biological reason for this. Humans are exquisitely sensitive to emotional regulation. In groups, the calm individual is subconsciously perceived as dominant. The agitated individual is perceived as unstable. Even when words are persuasive, the nervous system responds to demeanor first. Machiavelli trusted this instinct more than arguments. He knew the body always betrays the truth before the mind catches up. This is why restraint feels violent to those who envy you. You are not fighting them on the surface. You are letting gravity do the work. Their efforts collapse inward. Their allies become fatigued. Repetition without escalation feels obsessive. Obsession signals weakness, and weakness invites distance. At a certain point, something critical happens. The jealous person realizes they are alone, or worse, tolerated but not trusted. Their network thins, their influence shrinks, and they cannot accuse you of causing it. You did nothing. You said nothing. You simply remained where you were, higher, quieter, untouched. This moment is dangerous for them and pivotal for you. Desperation increases risk-taking. They may attempt a direct confrontation, or a public accusation, or a moral ultimatum. This is the final test Machiavelli anticipated, and he prepared for it long before it arrived. If confrontation comes, you do not escalate. You do not retaliate emotionally. You respond with measured clarity, or not at all. You allow witnesses to observe contrast, calm versus chaos, control versus urgency, authority versus resentment. People do not follow logic under stress, they follow stability. But understand this, if you miscalculate here, if you indulge in superiority or contempt,
you undo everything. Power does not announce itself, it settles. The moment you seek acknowledgement of victory, you invite reversal. Machiavelli despised premature triumph. He waited until outcomes were irreversible. The jealous person's greatest fear is not punishment, it is irrelevance, being ignored by the hierarchy they tried to disrupt, being reduced to noise. This is the quiet erasure Machiavelli mastered, not exile, not destruction, but insignificance. Now in this final movement, you will understand why true dominance over jealousy is not external at all, but internal, and how this strategy ultimately reshapes your identity into something unreachable.
The final truth is the one most people resist. Jealousy only has power over you when it finds something to attach to inside your own identity. Machiavelli's ultimate strategy was not merely to neutralize jealous people, but to become the kind of individual jealousy cannot reach. Not because others stop envying you, but because their envy no longer alters your internal state. This is where dominance becomes permanent, when you stop measuring yourself through reaction, when approval and hostility lose their ability to move you. The jealous person depends on emotional reciprocity. They need you to feel something: anger, fear, defensiveness, even pride. Indifference is annihilation. Understand what has happened by this stage. You have controlled visibility without vanishing. You have withheld reaction without retreating. You have allowed others to observe contrast without explanation. You have refused moral theater. You have let gravity expose instability, and most importantly, you have not internalized the hostility aimed at you. This is the inner fortress Machiavelli valued above all else. Jealousy feeds on comparison. Comparison requires access. Access requires intimacy. You have closed the gate without slamming the door. The jealous person now looks at you and sees no leverage, no emotional hooks, no predictable patterns. You are no longer a rival. You are an environment, and environments do not argue. They impose conditions. At this level, something subtle changes in how people relate to you. Conversations become measured. Challenges soften before they reach you. Criticism loses teeth, not because you intimidate openly, but because you are unreadable. Unreadable forces caution. Caution preserves hierarchy. Machiavelli understood that the highest form of power is not domination over others, but sovereignty over self. The jealous person is enslaved by their need to resolve internal inadequacy through external disruption. You are free because you do not need their reaction to confirm your position. Freedom is asymmetry. Asymmetry is control. This is also where many fail. They mistake emotional numbness for strength. That is not what this is. This is precision. You still feel, you simply choose not to display. You still observe, you simply do not absorb. You still act, you simply do not explain. This discipline separates those who hold power temporarily from those who inhabit it permanently. Jealousy never disappears from the world. Hierarchy never dissolves. Human insecurity never evolves away. What changes is where you stand in relation to it. Below it, reacting, or above it, unaffected. Machiavelli chose above, quietly, ruthlessly, patiently. At the end of this path, you stop asking how to deal with jealous people. You start noticing that fewer people dare to reveal themselves as such. Not because they have changed, but because you have. You no longer provide the psychological conditions they require to operate. This is the initiation point, not knowledge alone, but transformation. Most listeners will nod, feel a moment of recognition, and return to old patterns. A smaller number will adjust behavior,
An even smaller number will adjust identity. Those are the ones who understand that power is not loud, moral, or dramatic. It is silent, disciplined, and patient. If you recognize yourself in this, if you are done reacting and ready to operate with clarity and control, then you already know what to do. Subscribe and remain inside this circle. This is not content for the curious. This is orientation for those who intend to see clearly, move deliberately, and never be controlled by the emotions of lesser minds again.